Snow squeaking under boots in church parking lot. Radiator hissing against December cold. Coffee percolator gurgling in fellowship hall kitchen. Damp wool coats steaming on folding chairs. Cold metal door handle biting palm. Carol's too sweet perfume cutting through casserole smells. Green bean, tuna, burnt cheese edges. Warren Hodge, 67, stands by buffet table holding store-bought pies while wife Diane peels away without acknowledgement. 43 relatives, neighbors, church members milling. Shelley Kimball, twice divorced cousin, real estate agent, approaches loud. Warren, you look good for an old farmer. Property values around here are crazy. Your place worth $800,000? Warren demurs. Shelley touches his arm, projects voice. Well, if Diane's done with you, can I have him? Spoon drops. Crowd silences. Diane freezes mid-serve, grips serving spoon white-knuckled, Shelley's red dress against gray winter coats. Diane's pearl necklace catches overhead fluorescent light. Warren's flannel, work-worn hands holding disposable pie tin. I waited for Diane to claim me. She turned away instead. The highway salt turned the windshield into a smeared gray mirror. 2 hours of it. 2 hours of Diane, staring out the passenger window like she was memorizing every frozen cornfield between the church and home. I tried 3 times. Snow's supposed to hold off till Tuesday. Nothing. Think we should stop by Carol's before Christmas? Check on her? Her phone buzzed. She tilted the screen away. Diane. What? Not a question. A wall. You okay? She finally looked at me, just for a second. I'm fine. Just tired. Tired. That word again. She'd been tired for 3 weeks. Tired when I asked about her day. Tired when I suggested we drive up to see the grandkids. Tired when I reached for her hand across the kitchen table. But at the church, standing by that buffet table with Shelley Kimball's voice carrying across 43 people, she hadn't looked tired. She'd looked like someone who'd just been caught. The wipers scraped their rhythm. The heater blew dry air that smelled like dust and old carpet. Her new wool coat, expensive charcoal gray, never mentioned buying it, rustled when she shifted in her seat. Carol seemed upset, I said. Carol's always upset about something. She pulled you aside. Twice. She's my sister. I know. Then why are you asking? I wasn't asking about Carol, but I let it drop. Let the miles roll by. Let the silence fill the truck cab like cold water. We'd been married 40 years. There was a time we could fill 2 hours easy, talk about the week's weather, the neighbor's new fence, what we'd plant come spring, small things that added up to something. Now we couldn't fill 2 minutes. Her phone buzzed again. This time she answered it. Hey, yeah, no, Thursday's still good. Like we planned. She glanced at me. I'll call you later. Thursday. Like we planned. I didn't ask. We pulled into the driveway just after dark. She was out of the truck before I turned off the engine. Said she'd ride to Christmas Eve service with Carol tomorrow. Said they needed to talk about family matters. I sat in the driveway and watched her go inside without looking back. Christmas Eve. Morning came cold and clear. The kind of cold that makes fence posts crack. I was up at 5:30, like always. Coffee from the thermos my grandfather gave me in 1979, AM radio playing Merle Haggard low. The barn was dark except for the workbench light. I had a carburetor spread out on a clean rag, but my hands weren't working right. Kept thinking about that word. Thursday. At 7, I walked out to check the mail. The mailbox handle bit my fingers. Metal that cold feels like it's burning. There was frost on the lid, my breath visible in the air. One envelope. First National Bank return address. Addressed to Diane. Already opened. The envelope crumpled like she'd shoved it back in after reading it. I pulled out the paper. Final notice. Agricultural lien default account holder. Hodge, Diane M. and Hodge, Warren J. Original lien amount, $120,000. Current balance due, 127 3 days to satisfy debt or property, subject to foreclosure proceedings, 90. I read it 3 times. Then I walked back to my barn and sat on the cold workbench holding that paper while the coffee in my thermos went from hot to warm to cold. My father lost his farm in 1973. Bank took it for $5,000 he didn't have after 2 bad corn years. I was 14. I watched them auction off our tractor, our tools, everything with the family name on it. Watched my mother cry in the kitchen. Watched my father stop talking for 6 months. I swore I'd never owe a bank a dime. Paid off this place in 1996. Threw a quiet party, just me and Diane, and a bottle of whiskey on the back porch. She'd cried happy tears that night. Said she finally felt safe. And here I was, 67 years old, sitting in a barn on Christmas Eve morning, reading a foreclosure notice for a debt I didn't know existed. The notice was dated November 15th, 38 days ago. She'd been hiding it for 38 days. I heard her car pull in around 10. She was humming, actually humming some tune from the radio. I folded the notice and put it in my shirt pocket, right over my heart where I could feel the paper crinkle when I moved. That's when I knew, whatever this was, she'd been planning it a long time. Christmas morning. The tree lights blinked red and green in the living room. Neither of us had opened presents yet. I set the foreclosure notice on the kitchen table. Diane was pouring coffee. Her cup trembled when she saw the paper. Coffee sloshed over the rim onto her hand. She didn't wipe it off. "Where did you find that?" Not a question, an accusation. "Mailbox. You stuffed it back in after you opened it." She set the coffee pot down hard. "I was going to tell you." "When? After they auctioned the place?" "Don't be dramatic." "Dramatic." I tapped the paper. $120,000, Diane. Against our farm. Our paid-off farm that we swore we'd never— Carol needed help. The words came out flat, like she'd practiced them. Carol. Her restaurant's failing. She's my sister. She was going to lose everything. Her house, her car, the kids' college fund. She begged me. I stared at her. At this woman I'd been married to for 40 years. Her hair was still in curlers. She was wearing the robe I'd given her 3 Christmases ago. There was a coffee stain spreading on her finger. "So you pledged our farm as collateral, without asking me. You would have said no." "You're damn right I would have said no." She flinched. I never cursed, not at her. "Carol's family," she said. "So am I, or I thought I was." "You don't understand what it's like." "Then, explain it to me." She gripped the counter edge. Her knuckles went white. "You don't understand what it's like to watch your sister struggle while you sit on all this." She gestured around the kitchen, at the paid-off house, the full pantry, the security I'd spent 40 years building. "Sit on all this? You mean the farm I worked since I was 22? The place I paid off so we'd never be like my parents?" "Your parents made bad choices." The room went very quiet. Even the refrigerator stopped humming. "Say that again." She looked away. "I didn't mean— You forged my signature." My voice came out steady, cold. "Didn't you?" She didn't answer. "Diane, you would have stopped me." There it was. Not an apology, not shame, just simple fact. I would have stopped her so she went around me. "Carol said it was temporary," Diane whispered. "Just until the restaurant turned around. She promised she'd pay it back." "And you believed her." "She's my sister. I'm your husband." She finally looked at me, really looked at me. "You've always been so careful with money, so tight. Carol said—" She stopped. "Carol said what?" "That you were too cheap to see family struggling, that someone had to do something." I stood up, walked to the window. Outside, snow was starting to fall, light flakes that wouldn't amount to much. "I need to call Clay," I said. "Warren, Clay Mercy, my attorney, because apparently I need one now. It's Christmas." "Yeah, Merry Christmas to me." Clay answered on the 3rd ring. "Warren, it's 8 in the morning on Christmas. I need you to look at something. Now? Now." 20 minutes later, I was sitting at Clay's kitchen table. His grandkids were opening presents in the living room. The whole house smelled like ham baking, cinnamon rolls, coffee. Normal Christmas smells. Everything I wasn't having. Clay put on his reading glasses, spread the foreclosure notice on the table, let out a low whistle. "When did you find out?" "This morning." "And when did she sign this?" "I didn't sign anything. That's the problem." He looked up sharp. "You're saying she forged it." "I'm saying I never saw these papers until today." Clay flipped through the attached copies of the lien documents. His jaw got tighter with each page. "Warren, this isn't just a loan. This is collateral against your entire property. If the debt defaults, they take the farm. I know." "No." He set the papers down. "You don't know. Look at this." He pointed to a line of fine print. "This lien isn't for Diane's spending. It's not even in her name, primarily." "What do you mean?" "It's a commercial loan to Carol Lynn Brennan for Family Feast Cafe." He looked at me over his glasses. "The restaurant that closed in October." The ham smell suddenly made me nauseous. "Diane pledged your farm as collateral for Carol's business loan," Clay said. "A business that was already failing. And now Carol can't pay. The bank's coming after the collateral, and you've got—" He checked the date. 83 days before they can force a sale. I couldn't breathe right. The kitchen felt too small. "Can we fight it?" "If the signature's forged, yes. But we'd need a forensic document examiner. That's $2,500 in 2 weeks minimum. And Warren, he hesitated. Even if we prove forgery, Carol's debt still exists. Banks within their rights if they believe the signature's legitimate. This goes to trial. It's your word against Diane's. And family fraud cases with get ugly. Get ugly fast. His youngest grandson ran through the kitchen waving a new toy truck. Clay waited until he was gone. There's something else, he said. If Diane signed this, and she had legal access to your marital assets, which she does, a judge might rule she had implied consent, especially if what? If she claims you were controlling with finances, if she paints herself as a desperate wife trying to help her sister while her husband hoarded money. I thought about Shelley's voice carrying across that fellowship hall. If Diane's done with you, can I have him? I thought about Diane not saying a word. This wasn't about Carol's restaurant. This was about painting me as the villain so they could take everything I'd built. Clay folded the papers. I'll start the paperwork day after Christmas. We'll need that forensic exam. But Warren, you need to prepare for this to get worse before it gets better. Wednesday morning, I drove to Nate's feed store. The cold snap had broken, but everything was still gray. Sky, roads, fields, that dead of winter gray that makes you forget what green looks like. The store smelled like grain dust and coffee. Folgers brewing in the back. 3 other farmers were already at the counter. Bill Henderson, Tom Yates, and Roy Schmidt. All of them past 60. All of them knew my father. They looked up when I walked in, nodded, didn't say much. Nate poured me coffee in a styrofoam cup without asking, set it on the vinyl counter in front of the empty stool they'd left for me. Warren, he said. Nate. I sat, sipped the coffee. It was terrible and perfect at the same time. Bill cleared his throat. Heard you had a rough Christmas. Small towns. Everyone knows everything by breakfast. Could say that. Carol's restaurant went under back in October, Tom said, stirring sugar into his cup. Heard the bank called the loan in November. That's about right. Roy picked at a scratch on the counter. Also heard Shelley Kimball's been asking questions. I looked at him. What kind of questions? About your place, acreage, water rights, square footage of the house and barn. He met my eyes. Asked me 2 weeks ago. I told her to mind her own business. Nate leaned on the counter. She asked me too. Said she had a client interested in the area. Wanted to know if you'd ever mentioned selling. When was this? September, maybe early October. Before Carol's restaurant failed, before the foreclosure notice, before the family reunion. I set my coffee down carefully. Shelley's been planning this since September. Planning what? Bill asked. So I told them, not everything, just enough. The lien, Carol's debt, Diane's signature, the 90-day clock ticking down. The store went quiet, except for the coffee maker gurgling in back and grain dust settling in the winter sunlight coming through the front window. Jesus, Tom said finally. Tom said. There's more. Nate wiped the counter with a rag even though it was clean. You know how the ladies' auxiliary meets every other Thursday? Yeah. Diane and Carol have been hosting an investment club. Last 6 months. 8, 9 women usually. They meet at Carol's house. Investment club. That's what they call it. But word is, he glanced at the others. They nodded like they'd already discussed this. Word is, it's mostly Carol talking about how property values are going up, how folks sitting on land are being selfish, how family should help family. My hands tightened around the coffee cup. Half the church ladies knew about that lien before you did, Warren, Nate said quietly. They've been primed to think you're tight with money, that Diane had to go behind your back because you wouldn't help your own family. Bill muttered something under his breath. They set me up, I said. They set you up, Nate agreed. Roy pushed his empty cup away. What do you need? Need? We're asking what you need to fight this. I looked at these men, farmers who'd known my father, who'd helped me when the creek flooded in '98, who'd shown up when my mother died and never said a word, just worked alongside me until the work was done. I don't know yet, I said. Clay's working on it. Clay's good people, Tom said. He'll figure it out. But if you need help, Bill stood up, pulled out his wallet, set 2 20s on the counter. For that forensic, whatever Clay mentioned, we all heard he's good but expensive. I can't take your... Tom added 3 20s. Roy added 2. Nate opened the register and pulled out a 50. You helped me during the flood, Nate said. You fixed May Sutherland's well pump and wouldn't take a dime. You co-signed Bill's equipment loan when the bank said he was too old. He pushed the money toward me. This is what neighbors do. My throat went tight. I appreciate it. One more thing, Roy said. We're not the only ones who think this stinks. There's plenty of folks at church who know you, Warren. Know what kind of man you are. Don't let Carol and Diane's gossip make you think you're alone. I nodded. Couldn't quite speak yet. Clay's office was above the feed store. Wood stairs that creaked. Same oak desk his father had used. File cabinets floor to ceiling, 45 years of cases. The wood stove crackled. It smelled like cigar smoke and old paper and winter coming through the cracks around the window frame. Clay set the forensic report on the desk between us. Margaret Delano, state capital, best document examiner in 3 counties. He turned the report so I could read it. 87% probability the signature is forged. I held my grandfather's brass surveyor's compass in my pocket. Ran my thumb over the worn casing, something solid to hold on to. 87%. It's good, Warren, very good. Look here. He pointed to enlarged signature comparisons. The pressure points are wrong. Your H always loops tight. This one's loose. The angle's off by 6 degrees. The execution looks rushed. So we've got her. Clay lit a cigar, took his time with it. That's when I knew the bad news was coming. We've got evidence, he said. But this is family fraud, Warren. Diane can claim duress, say Carol pressured her, say she was trying to help her sister and didn't understand the legal ramifications. She's a retired bank officer. She can play the "I thought I was doing the right thing" card. But the signature helps, but it's not bulletproof. Jury sees a woman trying to save her sister from losing everything, and a husband who, no offense, makes good money and paid off his farm years ago. He tapped ash into a tray. They might sympathize with her. I stared out the window. Nate's feed store sign swinging in the wind below, gray sky pressing down. So what do? We file fraud charges anyway. Put pressure on. See if Diane cracks. He leaned back in his chair. It creaked under his weight. But Warren, you need to know. This is going to get uglier before it gets better. Small town, church family, people taking side. I know. And there's something else. He hesitated. If we push this, Diane might push back. Divorce, asset division. She could argue she's entitled to half the farm value regardless. She forged my signature to steal my farm, and I'm supposed to give her half of it anyway? I'm telling you what a judge might rule. What I'm not telling you, he pointed the cigar at me, is to roll over. We fight this. We fight it hard. But you need to know the cost going in. I pulled out the compass, set it on his desk. The needle found north like it always did. My grandfather used this to settle property disputes for 40 years, I said. Folks would argue about fence lines, access roads, who owned what. He'd take out this compass, walk the land, and point to true north. Said arguments disappear when you're looking at facts. Clay smiled, a hard smile. Then let's point to some facts. But even as I said it, I knew the fight hadn't even started yet. Saturday morning, January. I was in the barn rebuilding the tractor carburetor, the kind of work that clears your head. Parts laid out on a clean rag, each piece with its place, everything logical. The cold made the metal sting when you touched it. Diesel smell mixing with old hay and coffee from my thermos. AM radio playing low, some talk show I wasn't really listening to. I heard heels clicking on the concrete floor before I saw her. Shelley Kimball, red coat, impractical heels, leather portfolio under one arm. Her perfume hit me before she did, something expensive that didn't belong in a barn. Warren, she smiled like we were old friends. Hope I'm not interrupting. I set down the wrench. What do you want, Shelley? To talk, that's all. She looked around the barn, at the pegboard tools, the workbench, the tractor with its guts spread open. You keep this place nice. It's a barn. Still, shows pride of ownership. She set her portfolio on a hay bale, opened it. I wanted to apologize for what happened at the reunion. That comment I made, it was inappropriate. Was it? Of course. I had too much wine and, look, I felt terrible afterward. Diane was so upset. I picked up a bolt, examined it like it was the most interesting thing in the world. Diane didn't seem upset at the time. She was shocked. We all were. Shelley pulled out papers from the portfolio, glossy printouts. But that's not really why I'm here. I wanted to show you something. A business opportunity. I'm not interested. Warren, please, just look. She spread the papers on the workbench, pushing my tools aside to make room. These are comparable sales in the area. Your property, 80 acres, house, barn, water rights. It's worth between $750,000 and $800,000, maybe more to the right buyer. I'm not selling. I know you're in a difficult situation, with Carol's loan coming due, and how do you know about that? She looked at me. The smile stayed, but something shifted behind her eyes. Carol mentioned it. She's worried sick, Warren. She never meant for this to happen. She took out a loan she couldn't pay and used my farm as collateral without my knowledge. What exactly did she mean to happen? Family helps family. That's all she wanted. I put the bolt down, wiped my hands on a rag. You've been asking about my property since September, before Carol's restaurant failed, before any of this happened. Her smile faltered, just for a second. I'm a real estate agent. I keep track of properties in my area. That's my job. And what's your job here, today? She closed the portfolio. The smile was gone now. I'm offering you a way out. $600,000, cash, close in 30 days. You walk away clean, no foreclosure on your record, no legal mess with Diane. $600 for a property worth $8. $750 tops, and that's retail. I'm offering cash and speed. Do you know how rare that is? She stepped closer, too close. Warren, be smart. The bank's gonna take this place in what, 81 days now? You'll get nothing. I'm offering you a life raft. I looked at her standing in my barn, at the papers with their glossy photos and market analysis, at the pre-approval letters from 3 different banks she'd pulled out to show she was serious. This wasn't flirtation. This wasn't about me at all. You're not offering me anything, I said quietly. You're trying to buy my farm at a discount so you can flip it for twice that. And Diane and Carol, they're helping you do it, aren't they? That's ridiculous. Is it? Carol creates the debt. Diane forges my signature and hides the notice so I can't fight it early. You show up offering to rescue me at 60 cents on the dollar. How much were you planning to split? Her face went hard. You're making accusations you can't prove. Get out of my barn. Warren, now. She grabbed her portfolio, clicked across the concrete in those stupid heels. At the door, she turned back. You're making a mistake. That offer expires in 48 hours. Good. After she left, I sat on a hay bale for a long time, staring at the carburetor pieces, at the work I understood, the metal and bolts and gaskets that made sense. The fellowship hall, again, same room where Shelley had humiliated me 6 weeks ago. Now it was a battlefield. February cold pressed against old windows. The radiator hissed and clanked. 53 people showed up, church members, family, neighbors, all of them choosing sides. Pastor Jim sat at the head table, trying to look neutral. Clay sat next to me, legal pad in front of him, reading glasses on. Diane sat across the room with her lawyer, Jason Merrick, 35, expensive suit, briefcase that probably cost more than my truck. He'd driven up from the city. That told me everything. Let's begin, Pastor Jim said. We're here to mediate. My client is here under protest, Merrick interrupted. Mrs. Hodge has been subjected to harassment and financial control for years. This mediation is a courtesy. Clay's pen stopped moving. Financial control. That's interesting phrasing. My client worked as a bank loan officer for 30 years. She understands finance. Yet her husband refused her access to marital assets, refused to help family members in crisis, and created an environment of... That's a lie. I didn't mean to say it out loud. Everyone turned to look at me. Merrick smiled, thin and sharp. Is it? Mrs. Hodge, can you tell us, did your husband allow you to make financial decisions? Diane looked down at her hands. She'd been crying earlier. Her eyes were red, real tears or performance. I couldn't tell anymore. No, she whispered. Speak up, please. No, he controlled everything. The accounts, the checkbook, all of it. That's not... I started. Clay put his hand on my arm. Don't. Merrick pulled out papers. I have documentation showing Mrs. Hodge tried to open a separate checking account in 2019. Her husband closed it within a week. I have testimony from family members that he refused to help with medical bills, home repairs, and family emergencies. Those aren't family emergencies, Clay said. Those are Carol's business failures. Mrs. Hodge's sister needed help, a sister who was facing bankruptcy and homelessness. And when Mrs. Hodge tried to do the Christian thing, He looked at Pastor Jim. The charitable thing, she was forced to do it secretly because her husband would have denied her. The room was so quiet I could hear people breathing. She forged his signature, Clay said flatly. She secured a loan to help family, using marital property she had every legal right to access, and now her husband is threatening criminal charges out of spite. I looked at Diane. She was crying, really crying now. I never meant to hurt you, she said to me. Carol needed help, and you wouldn't listen. You never listen. Around the room, people were nodding. The women from Carol's investment club, Diane's friends from the auxiliary, even some men who'd known me for years were looking at me different. Pastor Jim cleared his throat. Perhaps, Warren, you might consider reconciliation, for the good of the church family. These legal proceedings are causing pain for everyone. I stared at him, at this man who'd baptized my kids, who'd buried my mother, who was now asking me to let it go. She's trying to steal my farm, I said. That's inflammatory language, Merrick said. Mrs. Hodge is trying to save her marriage and her family. Mr. Hodge is responding with legal threats and public humiliation. Half the room was looking at me like I'd been beating her, like I was the villain who'd kept his wife trapped and desperate. The other half, Bill, Tom, Roy, Nate, May Sutherland, they looked away. Not because they believed it, because they didn't know how to help. I stood up. The chair scraped loud on the linoleum. We're done here, I said. Clay started to object. I walked out. In the parking lot, I sat in my truck and watched my breath fog the windshield. Through the fellowship hall windows, I could see them still talking, Diane wiping her eyes, Merrick gesturing, Pastor Jim nodding. That's when I saw Shelley's car across the street. She was sitting in it, watching. When she saw me looking, she smiled and held up a folder. They'd planned this, all of it, the loan, the forgery, the public character assassination, Shelley waiting to scoop up the property when I was too broken to fight, and half the town believed I deserved it. I spent 3 days in my barn, didn't answer the phone when Clay called, didn't go to church Sunday, didn't go to town for coffee, just me and the tractor, and the work that needed doing. Late February, the thaw had started, ice dripping from the barn eaves, mud season coming, the sound of water running where everything had been frozen solid for months. I rebuilt that carburetor piece by piece, cleaned every part, replaced the gaskets, checked the float, did it right because that's the only way I know how to do things. The work steadied me. Always had. My grandfather taught me that. He'd had a saying, when life gets complicated, fix something simple. Can't control people, but you can control a wrench. The barn smelled like motor oil and WD-40, coffee from my thermos, old hay and wet earth from outside. I kept the radio off, didn't need voices telling me how to think. Third day, I was torquing down the last bolt when I noticed my grandfather's surveyor's compass on the workbench. The needle was stuck, frozen at northeast instead of pointing true north. I picked it up, examined it. 50 years of use, and I'd never seen it malfunction. The mechanism was gummed up, dirt or moisture or just age. I cleaned it carefully with a cotton swab and light oil, worked the needle free, watched it swing and settle. North, always north, if you clean away what's blocking it. My grandfather used to say that too. True north don't lie, Warren. Even when folks do, even when everything's turned around, you can always find north if you look for it. I set the compass down and looked at my barn. At 45 years of tools organized just so, at the tractor I'd maintained myself, at the work I understood, they wanted me angry, wanted me to lash out, make mistakes, prove I was the bitter old man Diane's lawyer had painted me as. I wouldn't give them that. I'd be cold and careful instead. Thursday evening, I finally drove to Clay's office. The stairs creaked under my boots. Inside smelled like cigar smoke and wood stove heat and old leather. Clay looked up from his desk. Thought you died out there. Needed to think. And I'm done being on defense. I sat down across from him. What do we have? He leaned back. The chair groaned. Margaret's forensic report. 87% probability of forgery. That's solid. We've got the timeline showing Diane hid the notice for 38 days. We've got Shelley's pattern. Pattern? Did some digging. Shelley's targeted 3 other elderly property owners in the last year. 2 of them sold, under pressure. He tapped his pen on the desk. One was May Sutherland's neighbor, Frank Holloway. Shelley convinced him his kids wanted him in a nursing home, that he should sell before they forced him. Bought his place for 60% of value, flipped it 6 months later for double? Jesus. Gets better. The state licensing board has 2 complaints against her already. Nothing stuck. But it's there. If we can prove she conspired with Diane and Carol, that this was a coordinated effort to force a sale, the board will revoke her license. I thought about Shelley sitting in her car outside the fellowship hall, watching, waiting for me to break. So we hit all three of them, I said. Fraud charges against Diane, undue influence claim against Carol, real estate malfeasance complaint against Shelley. Clay pulled out a legal pad covered in notes. But Warren, we need witnesses, people willing to testify, about your character, about Carol's manipulation, about Shelley's targeting. How many? Jury trial, 12 minimum, more is better. I pulled out the brass compass, set it on his desk. The needle pointed steady north through everything, wood and paper and the weight of what we were about to do. I can get 20, I said. Clay smiled. First real smile I'd seen from him in weeks. Then let's file Monday, serve papers Thursday. Preliminary hearing will be, he checked his calendar, 18 days, March 15th. That's 10 days before the foreclosure deadline. I know, we're cutting it close, but if the judge sees probable cause, she can issue a stay, freeze the foreclosure until the criminal case resolves. He lit a cigar, took his time with it. This is going to get ugly, Warren. Uglier than the town meeting. Are you ready for that? I thought about Diane's tears, about Pastor Jim asking me to reconcile, about half the church looking at me like I was the villain. I'm ready. Good. He blew smoke toward the ceiling. Because we're going to war. Outside, rain started. Soft spring rain that would wash away the last of the snow. I could hear it pattering on the roof, running through the gutters, soaking into the ground. Winter ending, whether I was ready or not. Sunday morning, first week of March. I went to church, hadn't been since the town meeting 3 weeks ago, but I wasn't going to let them run me out of my own congregation, not after 40 years. The morning was warmer, spring trying to push through, pussy willows starting on the trees by the parking lot, mud in the unpaved spots where snow had melted. First Methodist looked the same as always, white clapboard, tall steeple, the church my grandfather helped build in 1952. I walked in and sat in the back pew. My usual spot was 3 rows from the front, right side, but I wasn't ready to walk past everyone, not yet. The organ was playing Prelude. Great is thy faithfulness. Watery sunlight coming through the stained glass windows, red and blue and gold falling across empty pews. People filtered in. I watched them see me, watched their reactions. Bill Henderson nodded, sat across the aisle from me. Solidarity. May Sutherland squeezed my shoulder as she passed. Didn't say anything. Didn't need to, but then Carol's friends came in. Linda Weber, Joyce Ham, Susan Chen, the investment club women. They sat 3 rows ahead and to the left, close enough I could hear them whisper. Heard he threatened Diane with a restraining order. After everything she did for him, 30 years at that bank. My husband says men like that never change, control freaks. The organ swelled. People stood for the opening hymn. I stood too, didn't sing, just held the hymnal and watched. Pastor Jim took the pulpit after the hymn. He looked tired. This was eating at him too, his congregation fracturing. Today's sermon, he said, comes from Matthew chapter 18, verses 21 and 22. Peter asks Jesus, Lord, how many times shall I forgive my brother when he sins against me? Up to 7 times. And Jesus answers, not 7 times, but 70 times 7. He looked right at me when he said it. The sermon was about forgiveness, about letting go of grudges, about how holding on to anger only poisons ourselves, about how the Christian response to wrongdoing is grace, not vengeance. Sometimes, Pastor Jim said, his voice carrying through the sanctuary, we hold grudges over small things, financial disputes, hurt feelings, misunderstandings that could be resolved if we just chose to forgive. Small things. Someone behind me, I didn't turn to see who, said amen. During communion, I stayed in my pew, watched half the congregation avoid eye contact as they filed past. The other half, Diane's half, looked at me with something like pity, or maybe contempt, hard to tell the difference. After the service, I walked to my truck, found a note under the windshield wiper, block letters, anonymous. You're embarrassing the church. Drop it. I folded it carefully, put it in my pocket with the foreclosure notice I still carried, evidence piling up. Bill caught up with me in the parking lot. Don't listen to them. Hard not to. Well, Pastor Jim's in a tough spot, trying to keep the peace, by asking me to lie down and take it, by asking you to be the bigger man. Bill spit in the gravel. Problem is, you're already the bigger man. They just can't see it. I look back at the church, at the building my grandfather helped raise, At the place I'd been baptized, married, where I'd buried my parents. Don't know how much more bigger I can get, I said. Wednesday morning, feed store coffee counter, back to routine. Nate poured coffee without asking, set it in front of me with a look that said he had news. Tom and Roy were already there. Bill came in behind me. The four of them had clearly been waiting. Tell him, Roy said. Nate pulled out a photocopy from under the counter, slid it across to me. Carol tried to borrow money from Farmers Credit Union 2 weeks ago, used false income statements. I looked at the paper. Loan application, Carol Lynn Brennan, requesting $35,000, income listed as $78,000 annually. She doesn't make $78,000, I said. She doesn't make anything. Restaurant's closed. She's unemployed. Nate tapped the paper. She lied. Bank caught it, denied the loan. But here's the thing. Tom leaned forward. My cousin works at the credit union. Says this isn't the first time. Carol's tried borrowing from 5 different places in the last 3 months. All denied. She's desperate, Roy said. More than desperate. Nate pulled out another paper. My wife's sister works at the county clerk's office. Carol's husband, Derek, he filed for divorce last week. The coffee counter went quiet, just the sound of the percolator burbling in back and grain dust settling in the morning light through the windows. He's divorcing her? I said. Cited financial dishonesty, said he couldn't take the lying anymore, said she'd been hiding debt for 2 years. Nate lowered his voice. Warren, it's not just the restaurant loan. Carol's $340,000 in debt, credit cards, personal loans, a second mortgage she took out without telling Derek. The restaurant was just the tip. I set down my coffee. Couldn't drink it suddenly. So the lien against my farm is a drop in the bucket for her. She was drowning and grabbed for anything she could reach. Your farm just happened to be there. Roy cleared his throat. There's more. Carol's house is going into foreclosure. Derek moved out. She's living alone in a place the bank's about to take. Jesus. Which means, Tom looked at me steady. If Carol declares bankruptcy, that loan becomes unsecured debt. Bank can't force your farm sale. They'd have to go after Carol's assets first, and she doesn't have any. I looked at Nate. You're sure? Clay needs to confirm it with the credit union, but yeah, if Carol files bankruptcy before your foreclosure date, which is, 26 days now? The lien collapses. Bank's got nothing. It was like a door opening, light coming through. So we pressure Carol, I said slowly. Not Diane. You pressure Carol to do what she should have done 6 months ago. Admit she's bankrupt and file. Nate refilled my coffee. Breaks the conspiracy. Diane signed for a loan that no longer exists. Shelley's buying opportunity disappears. Whole thing falls apart. Bill smiled. Like pulling one card from a house of cards. I pulled out my grandfather's compass. Set it on the counter. The needle swung and found north through the coffee and the grain smell and the morning light. Clay's going to love this, I said. Clay's going to kiss you, Tom said. Or he would, if he wasn't so damn professional. We sat there drinking terrible coffee and watching the sun get higher. Outside, the mud was drying. The pussy willows were opening, spring coming whether anyone was ready or not. Thank you, I said to all of them, for digging, for standing with me. Hell, Warren. Roy stood up, stretched his back. You co-signed my equipment loan when the bank said I was too old. This is nothing. It's not nothing. Then call it what it is, Nate said. Friends helping friends. Same as always. The phone rang at 1:47 in the morning. I was already awake. Lying in bed, listening to rain on the roof. March rain, warmer than it had been, the kind that soaks deep instead of freezing on contact. I almost didn't answer. Unknown number, but something made me pick up. Warren, Diane's voice, broken, sobbing so hard I could barely understand her. What? Carol, she took pills. Oh God, Warren, she took pills. The ambulance just left. I sat up, turned on the lamp. Is she alive? Yes, they pumped her stomach. She's at County General. They're keeping her for observation. More crying, hiccuping breaths. She left a note. She said if she loses everything, it's my fault, that I promised to help her, and I ruined it instead. I didn't say anything, just listened to her cry. Derek won't answer her calls, Diane whispered. The bank sent foreclosure papers on her house yesterday. She's losing everything, and she blames me. You pledged my farm without asking. I know. You forged my signature. I know, her voice cracked. Warren, I know what I did. I know, but I thought, Carol said it would work. She said the restaurant just needed time. She promised she'd pay it back, and I believed her because she's my sister and I couldn't just watch her fail. Yes. Barely audible. I couldn't watch her lose everything when we have so much. The rain got harder, drumming on the roof like fingers tapping. I could smell the wet earth through the cracked window. Spring coming whether we wanted it or not. What do you want from me, Diane? Long silence, just her breathing and the rain. I don't know anymore, she said finally. I called because, I don't know, I thought you should know about Carol, in case you still… She stopped, started again. I know you'll never forgive me. You're right. I know, Her voice got very small. What have I done, Warren? What have I done? I thought about Carol in a hospital bed, about Derek filing for divorce, about $340,000 in debt that was never going anywhere but down, about Diane believing her sister's lies because family was supposed to mean something. You chose her over me, I said. That's what you did. She was drowning. So you tried to drown me too. She didn't have an answer for that. Is that all? I asked. Clay filed fraud charges. I got the papers today. I know. My lawyer says I could go to jail. You could. Do you want that? Do you want me in jail? I looked at the rain running down the window, at the compass on my nightstand, pointing north through everything. I want my farm, I said. I want the truth. I want whatever a jury decides is fair. That's all I ever wanted. I'm sorry, she whispered. I know it doesn't help, but I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't unsign forged documents, Diane. It doesn't give back the nights I laid awake wondering if I'd lose my father's legacy because my own wife sold me out. She was quiet for a long time. Then, I'll tell the truth at the hearing, about Carol, about the debt, about all of it. You'll tell the truth because Clay has evidence, not because you suddenly found a conscience. Maybe, but I'll still tell it. She took a shaky breath. I don't expect you to forgive me. I wanted you to know. About Carol, I thought you'd want to know. I would have wanted to know a lot of things, before you forged my signature. I hung up, sat there in the dark with just the lamp and the rain and the knowledge that winning this fight meant destroying what was left of my family, Diane facing fraud charges, Carol bankrupt and hospitalized, even Shelley losing her license. My father used to say, revenge is a poison you drink yourself, but so's letting people steal from you. I turned off the lamp, lay back down, listened to the rain, and wondered if there was any version of this where somebody didn't end up broken. 5 a.m, still dark outside, but I couldn't sleep. I drove to Nate's feed store, found the lights already on in the back room. 23 people were there. Nate had set up folding tables, coffee urns from the church, donuts from the gas and go, steam rising from styrofoam cups, the smell of coffee and sugar and diesel from the trucks outside. Bill, Tom, Roy, May Sutherland with her walker, Frank Holloway, Shelley's other victim, John Peterson, who I'd helped during the '98 flood, Martha Green, who I'd driven to chemotherapy appointments when her husband couldn't take off work, families I'd co-signed loans for, neighbors I'd helped with broken equipment and sick livestock and middle-of-the-night emergencies. They'd all come, before dawn, on a Thursday. Clay stood at the front table, legal pad open, reading glasses on. Morning, Warren, he said. We've got work to do. May was the first to speak. She had a shoebox on the table in front of her. My husband died in 2003, she said. Her voice shook, but she kept going. Cancer, 6 months from diagnosis to funeral. Warren wrote me a condolence note. Then he showed up every Wednesday for a year, fixed things around the house, brought groceries, never asked for a dime, never expected anything. She opened the shoebox. It was full of envelopes. I kept every note he wrote, every time he checked on me, because that's who Warren Hodge is. And when I heard what Diane was saying, that he's controlling, that he's tight with money, she looked at me. That's a lie, and I'll testify to it. Frank cleared his throat. Shelley Kimball came to me last year, said my kids wanted me in a nursing home, said I should sell before they forced me. I was so scared I sold my place for 60% of value. He set his coffee down hard. 2 months later, she flipped it for double. My kids never said a word about a nursing home. She lied, and I'll testify to that too. One by one, they spoke. John about the flood. Martha about chemotherapy rides, Tom about the equipment loan, Roy about co-signing when the bank said no. Clay took notes, page after page. When they were done, he looked up. This is what 40 years of being decent gets you. A room full of people willing to stand up. Nate refilled coffee cups. Preliminary hearings in 4 days, March 15th. Judge is Harriet Moss. She's tough, but fair. Clay's going to present the forensic evidence, the timeline, and character testimony. Goal is to get her to issue a stay on the foreclosure and find probable cause for the fraud charges to proceed. What do you need from us? Bill asked. Clay flipped his legal pad. 6 of you will testify at the hearing. The rest, I need written statements, notarized, about Warren's character, about Shelley's pattern, about anything relevant. He looked at me. And Warren, I need you ready. Merrick's going to come at you hard. He'll try to make you look vindictive, controlling, like you're doing this out of spite. I'm doing this because she forged my signature. I know, but you need to say it just like that. Calm, factual, no anger. The moment you look emotional, you lose. I thought about Diane's phone call, about Carol in the hospital, about the poison of revenge and the poison of being stolen from. I can do that, I said. May pushed the shoebox toward Clay. Take these. Every letter Warren wrote me, every note. Let the judge see who she's dealing with. Clay nodded, put the box with his briefcase. 4 days, people. We go to war in 4 days. Outside, dawn was breaking, pink and gold spreading across a sky that had been dark 5 minutes ago. Spring coming, ready or not. County Courthouse. March 15th, cold rain coming down. Early spring mud in the parking lot. The pussy willows on the trees were open now, soft gray buds that meant winter was finally done. I wore the only suit I owned, same one I'd worn to my wedding, to my parents' funerals. The fabric smelled like mothballs in the back of my closet. Clay walked beside me up the courthouse steps, his briefcase in one hand, May's shoebox under his other arm. Remember, he said, calm, factual, let the evidence speak. Inside, the courthouse smelled like floor wax and old wood, and the coffee someone had spilled by the water fountain. Our footsteps echoed on marble floors. Judge Harriet Moss presided, 68 years old, no nonsense. She'd been a judge for 23 years and wasn't impressed by expensive lawyers or tears. The courtroom filled up. Bill, Tom, Roy, Nate in the front row behind me, May with her walker, Frank Holloway, John Peterson, Martha Green, all 23 of them. Diane sat across the aisle with Jason Merrick. She looked smaller than I remembered, thinner. Her pearl necklace, her mother's, caught the light from the high windows. Carol wasn't there, still in the hospital, according to the whispers. All rise, the bailiff said. Judge Moss entered, took her seat, looked over her reading glasses at both sides. This is a preliminary hearing for the matter of State versus Diane Hodge. Fraud charges. Let's proceed. Clay stood. Your Honor, we'll present forensic evidence, timeline documentation, and character testimony establishing probable cause that Mrs. Hodge forged her husband's signature to secure a loan against marital property without his knowledge or consent. Proceed. Clay called Margaret Delano first, the forensic document examiner. She took the stand with enlarged photos of my signature. The signature on the lien document shows multiple inconsistencies with Mr. Hodge's verified signatures, she said, pointing. Pressure points are incorrect. The loop on the H is too loose. The angle is off by 6 degrees. The execution appears rushed. I'd place the probability of forgery at 87%. Merrick cross-examined. 87% isn't 100%. No. So it's possible this is a legitimate signature. Perhaps Mr. Hodge signed it and simply doesn't remember. The inconsistencies suggest otherwise. But it's possible. Margaret looked at him over her glasses. Many things are possible, counselor. Probable is different. Clay called me next. I took the stand, placed my hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth. Mr. Hodge, Clay said, did you sign the lien documents securing a loan against your property? No. Did you know about the loan? Not until I found the foreclosure notice on December 24th. What did you do when you found it? I confronted my wife. She admitted she'd pledged the farm as collateral for her sister Carol's restaurant loan. Clay pulled out documents. This is the foreclosure notice. Dated November 15th. When did you discover it? December 24th, Christmas Eve. So it was hidden from you for 38 days. Yes. Clay held up more papers. These are bank statements showing your wife had sole access to marital correspondence. She could have, and did, intercept this notice before you saw it. Merrick objected. Speculation. Overruled, Judge Moss said. Continue. Clay set my grandfather's compass on the evidence table. Mr. Hodge, what is this? My grandfather's surveyor's compass. He used it to settle property disputes for 40 years. Why did you bring it today? Because it points to true north. Always has. Even when everything else is turned around, you can find north if you look for it. I met Judge Moss's eyes. That's all I'm asking. Point to the truth. Merrick cross-examined. Tried to make me look vindictive. Isn't it true you refused to help your sister-in-law when she needed it? I didn't know she needed help. My wife never asked me. Because you would have said no. I would have wanted to see a business plan, understand the risk, not pledge my farm without discussion. So you admit you would have denied help to family. I admit I wouldn't have signed away my father's legacy based on a promise. Judge Moss looked interested, leaned forward slightly. Clay called May Sutherland. She took the stand slowly, her walker squeaking on the courtroom floor. When she sat, she opened that shoebox. I have 47 letters here, she said. Everyone written by Warren Hodge after my husband died. Condolence notes, check-in notes, notes telling me he'd be by Wednesday to fix the porch step or bring groceries or just sit with me while I cried. She pulled one out, read it aloud. Dear May, I know today is hard. First Christmas without Joe. If you need anything, anything at all, call me, day or night. You're not alone. Signed, Warren. Her voice shook. That's who this man is. And when I heard Mrs. Hodge's lawyer call him controlling, call him tight with money, I knew it was a lie. Because Warren Hodge spent a year of Wednesdays making sure a lonely widow didn't fall apart. She pushed the shoebox toward the judge. Every letter, every note, let the record show who's telling the truth. Merrick didn't cross-examine, couldn't. Frank Holloway testified about Shelley's targeting, John Peterson about the flood, Martha about chemotherapy rides. By the time Clay rested, Judge Moss had May's shoebox, the forensic report, bank statements, and testimony from 6 witnesses. She looked at both lawyers. I'll hear closing arguments. Merrick stood, talked about desperate wives and controlling husbands and family loyalty. Clay stood. Your Honor, the evidence is clear. Forged signature. Hidden notice. Coordinated effort between Mrs. Hodge, her sister, and real estate agent Shelley Kimball to force a property sale. This isn't about family helping family. It's fraud. Judge Moss looked at Diane. Mrs. Hodge, did you forge your husband's signature? Diane looked at Merrick. He whispered something. She looked at the empty seat where Carol should have been. Then she looked at me. Yes, she whispered. The courtroom went silent. Louder, please? Yes. I forged his signature. Tears running down her face now. Carol said, she said it would work, that the restaurant just needed time. She promised she'd pay it back and Warren would never have to know. But Mr. Hodge did find out. Yes. And rather than admit what you'd done, you allowed your lawyer to paint your husband as controlling and vindictive. Diane sobbed. I was scared. I didn't know what else to do. Judge Moss removed her glasses, cleaned them slowly. I find probable cause for fraud charges to proceed to trial. I'm issuing a stay on the foreclosure proceedings pending resolution of the criminal case. She looked at Diane. Mrs. Hodge, you'll be arraigned next week. Bail will be set at that time. She banged her gavel. We're adjourned. Pastor Jim's office? 2 hours after the hearing. Rain still coming down outside, but warmer now, the kind of rain that feeds things instead of freezing them. Diane sat across from me. Pastor Jim between us as mediator. Clay stood by the door, witness to whatever happened next. I need to tell you the truth, Diane said. Her voice was hoarse from crying. All of it. I'm listening. She twisted her wedding ring, on and off, on and off. Carol didn't just ask for help. She threatened me, said if I didn't co-sign the loan, she'd tell the whole family I refused to help, that I was selfish, that I let my own sister become homeless while I sat on a paid-off farm. So she blackmailed you. She made me feel guilty. Every day, phone calls, texts, showing up at the house. Remember when Mom helped me through college? Remember when Dad loaned me money for my wedding? Now it's your turn. Over and over until I couldn't. She stopped. I knew the restaurant was failing. I knew Carol was lying about the numbers, but she's my sister, and she made me believe I owed her. Pastor Jim leaned forward. What would your mother think, Diane, seeing you here, seeing what this became? Diane crumpled. She'd hate me. Mom always said tell the truth even when it hurts, and I've been lying for 6 months. Why? I asked. Why me? Why my farm? Because you never made me feel guilty. In 40 years, you never once made me feel like I wasn't enough. You never demanded things or manipulated or... She looked up, tears streaming. You were solid, reliable, and I took that for granted. I chose her guilt over your goodness because her guilt was louder. The office was quiet, except for rain on the windows, and Diane crying. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I know it doesn't fix anything, but I'm sorry. Clay pulled out papers. Mrs. Hodge, if you're willing to provide written testimony about Carol's coercion, it could help reduce your sentence. The judge will see you as a victim of manipulation, not just a co-conspirator. Will it help Warren? It will clear his name completely. She nodded, signed the papers with shaking hands. When she was done, she looked at me one last time. 40 years, she said. I threw away 40 years for a sister who lied to me in a restaurant that was never going to work. Yes, I said. You did. She stood, walked to the door, turned back. I'll sign the divorce papers. You can keep everything, the farm, the house, all of it. I don't deserve any of it. Then she was gone. Clay looked at me. You won. I thought about Carol in the hospital, Diane facing fraud charges, Shelley losing her license, my church fractured, 40 years of marriage ending in Pastor Jim's office on a rainy March afternoon. Nobody won, I said, but at least I didn't lose everything. April 1st, Clay's office, spring light coming through the windows. Real light, not winter gray, the kind that makes you believe things can grow again. Outside, robins were singing. I could see them in the tree by the feed store, red breasts bright against new green leaves. Clay had the final papers spread across his desk. Diane pled guilty yesterday, he said. 2 years probation, $15,000 in restitution to cover your legal fees. No jail time. Judge ruled she was coerced by Carol, showed genuine remorse. And Carol? Filed for bankruptcy last week. Her house goes to the bank. The restaurant loan gets written off as bad debt. The lien against your farm is dissolved. Bank can't collect on unsecured debt from a bankrupt debtor. He smiled. Your property's clear, Warren. Completely clear. I let that sink in. The weight I'd been carrying since Christmas Eve, gone. What about Shelley? State licensing board suspended her for 5 years. They found 3 cases besides yours. Elderly property owners she'd pressured into selling under false pretenses. She's facing civil suits from 2 of them. He closed the file. She's done in real estate. And Derek? Carol's husband? Divorce finalized. He got out clean, filed before her bankruptcy so none of her debt touches him. Last I heard he moved to Colorado. Started over. Smart man. Clay leaned back in his chair. It creaked the way it always did. The church is healing, slowly. Pastor Jim did a sermon series on accountability versus forgiveness. About half the congregation apologized to you directly. The other half's coming around. And the other half? Will come around when they're ready, or they won't. Either way, you've got your farm. Your name's clear. That's what matters. I pulled out my grandfather's compass, set it on the desk between us. The needle pointed north through everything. Wood and paper and all the months of fighting. Thank you, I said, for all of it. That's what friends do. He stood up, held out his hand. Speaking of which, opening day of fishing season Saturday. Miller's Pond, 5 in the morning. You coming? Wouldn't miss it. Saturday morning, April 7th, opening day. The pond was glass smooth when we arrived, dawn breaking pink and gold across the water. The ice was completely gone, just clear water and the sound of it lapping against the muddy shore. Clay set up his tackle box on the bank, pulled out 2 cigars, handed me one. To new beginnings, he said. We lit them, stood there watching smoke drift across the water while the sun climbed higher. I've been thinking, I said. Dangerous. About the farm, 80 acres is more than I need. Clay cast his line. The lure hit the water with a soft plop. What are you saying? 20 acres on the south end, the flat section by the road. I'm deeding it to the church for a community garden. He turned to look at me. Warren. My grandfather used to say land is meant to serve the community, not just the man holding the deed. I've been holding too tight. Forgot what it was for. You don't have to do this. Yeah, I do. Bitterness is expensive, Clay. This is cheap. We fished in comfortable silence. The kind of silence that comes from 45 years of friendship, the kind where you don't need to fill every moment with words. Clay caught the first bass of the season, a decent one, maybe 2 pounds. He held it up, grinning, then released it back into the water. You know what I realized, I said, watching the ripples spread. Diane was right about one thing. I am careful with money, with property, with everything, but that's not being controlling, that's being a steward. There's a difference. Damn right there is. I pulled out my grandfather's compass one last time. The brass was warm from my pocket, the needle steady. He used this to plot boundaries for 60 years, I said. Settled disputes, found true north when everything else was turned around. Monday morning I'm using it to plot the church's 20 acres. New boundaries, new purpose. That's good, Warren, real good. A blue heron landed on the far shore, stood there perfectly still, watching for fish, patient, knowing its time would come. Any regrets? Clay asked. I thought about it. About Diane and Carol and Shelley. About 40 years of marriage ending in a lawyer's office. About half my church thinking I was a villain for 3 months. Just one, I said finally. I wish I'd trusted my gut sooner. That feeling something was off. I knew it at the reunion. Should have acted then. Would have saved you some grief. Maybe. But regrets don't grow crops. Might as well plant something useful. My line jerked. I had one. Reeled it in steady, a nice smallmouth bass, fighting hard. When I got it to shore, I held it for just a moment. Felt its weight, its strength, its determination to keep swimming. Then I let it go. There's your metaphor, Clay said, grinning. Wasn't looking for one. Never are. That's why they find you. We fished until the sun was warm on our shoulders, until the coffee was gone and the cigars were down to ash, until it felt like maybe, just maybe, winter was finally over. And when I drove home past my 80 acres, past the land my father lost and I'd nearly lost too, I knew exactly where I was headed. True north, same as always. Contemplative resolution. Summer came. The church community garden took root on those 20 acres. Kids learned to plant tomatoes and beans. Elderly folks claimed plots for flowers. May Sutherland grew the biggest zucchini anyone had ever seen and brought me one the size of a baseball bat. I kept 60 acres, more than enough for one man. Saturday mornings I still do my tractor maintenance. Coffee from the thermos my grandfather gave me in 1979. AM radio playing low. The barn smells like motor oil and old hay and work that makes sense. The difference is, the silence now feels like peace instead of loneliness. Diane moved to her sister's old house after Carol left for Arizona. We're civil when we see each other at church. Nod across the parking lot. That's enough. Pastor Jim says, forgiveness is a process, not an event. I'm working on it. Some days are easier than others. 40 years I thought marriage meant never walking away. Turns out, sometimes the strongest thing you can do is let go of what's poisoning you and tend to what's still good. Thursday mornings, Clay and I fish Miller's Pond. The bass are biting. The coffee's terrible. The conversation's easy. My grandfather's compass sits on my workbench. The needle still points north, steady, reliable, true. I used it to plot those church boundaries. Used it to remind myself that, even when everything's turned around, you can find your direction if you're willing to look. People ask if I'm lonely. I tell them I'm alone. There's a difference. Lonely is wanting something you don't have. Alone is being content with what you've got. 60 acres, a barn that's mine, and a community garden where kids learn that dirt under your fingernails beats screens every time. That's enough. That's more than enough. True north, don't lie. Never has. And I'm exactly where I need to be.